Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 27th of April 2020, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. Your host today, Mike Robinson, myself, Brian Gerrish, and we're delighted to be joined by David Scott, bringing us, of course, northern exposure from north of the border.
Means facility and what happens to interest rates.
Yes. Now, we are about to have surveillance of a kind that we haven't seen before launched upon us with this whole contact tracing idea. So whereas in the past 77 Brigade and a bunch of other agencies have been tracking material that's been distributed across the internet, now we're actually going to track how people are making contact with each other in the physical world to a much greater level than we've been able to in the past. But the question being asked here, David, is the state's surveillance program a price worth paying?
Oh, yeah, because this was true comedy genius. Because it asked the question and then it said a major increase in state surveillance is a price worth paying to beat COVID-19. A UK think tank says. Oh, which UK think tank? The Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Well, there's a surprise. In a report, the Institute argues that the public must accept a level of intrusion that would normally be out of the question in liberal democracies. So there we go. That was their summary. Now, The Guardian went into it as well in a little bit more detail. And they quoted the Mr. Yu, the person from the Tony Blair Institute, who was presenting this. And he said, in normal times, the degree of monitoring and state intervention we are talking about here would be out of the question in liberal democracies. But these are not normal times, and the alternatives are even more unpalatable. This is quite different from the traditional debate about whether confronting security threats to our way of life merits sacrificing the values of freedom and privacy that define us. COVID-19 is not an ideology, and rebalancing the contract between citizens and the state to take advantage of the capabilities of new technologies is not capitulation. As a result, government should consider a number of interventions that might normally cross the line. Now, the first question is, what line is he talking about? He's talking about the line between lawful and unlawful. He's talking about the line that's called the Constitution. That's the line he's talking about crossing. He goes on later on to say for some things, well, we might have to go and get some legislation done. But for most of it, he's talking about just doing it. And this strange thing we've seen, well, it's not like a war. We're not capitulating. We're giving up our freedom, but we're not capitulating. It's confused thinking. We are capitulating. We're capitulating to our own government.
Indeed. I was just going to say indeed, but the idea that COVID-19 is not an ideology, it's quite clearly an ideology because it's not based in any reality.
Well, this is perfectly correct. This is what we're dealing with here. Is the mania, is the scare, is the fear, is the media generated panic. It's not actually the reality. We're constantly reporting on the reality, and the reality is very similar to seasonal flu 2 years ago. That's the reality, and so the response is completely disproportionate. So we're not dealing with the actual physical disease or a group of physical diseases. We are dealing with an ideology. We're dealing with a belief system working its way out.
Okay, well, let's delve in a little bit deeper. UK Column gets a lot of information from people that comes through to us in all sorts of ways. Sometimes we get information from people who claim they're whistleblowers. We have to be very careful with that information because we have to ensure that we protect those people doing what they're doing, but also what is the provenance of the information. But it's very interesting, in the last few days we had some fascinating contact, and we're basically given some pointers in relation to 77 Brigade. Now, we can't say these are 100% accurate. We're going to give them to our viewers and listeners as we have received them, and then I think there's some interesting questions to be asked. But let's have a look at comment on 77th Brigade received from unidentified whistleblower claiming former links with the operations. So 77 Brigade set up with much internal Army, MOD and Cabinet fanfare as an Army information warfare unit to defend against external threats. And what was pushed was that this was Russia initially, But later came UK internal security threats, such as those challenging government and policies and presenting a danger to the UK. The person said we were mega puffed up as the cream. So I think this is made to feel good and important in the setting up of the unit. Highly structured, secretive operations with rooms within rooms on top of the need to know system. Regular army personnel and reservists increasingly sidelined as the organisation expanded via the Cabinet Office and links with outside agencies such as Google, Twitter, Facebook and other unknown agencies. Influx of IT geeks, that was the words used, with unknown professional background and provenance. So these people appeared, but nobody really knew who they were. Adoption of informal, unmilitary operational conduct and staff relations. So in cases, things became overly casual, relaxed and friendly, and it was as if the gang had been created of mates. It went on, regular army personnel largely barred from the inner sanctum except for the top few. Surveillance of public, private, social media sites and comment expanded into ever-increasing areas of 77 Brigade or state interest. We need information on this person or that group. No information about why need to be given, just do it. Breakdown in professionalism in a laddish, geeky way. It's fun to spy on people and it's a bit of a laugh. We get a power kick from it. Increasing sense that under the fun layer, the organisation was sinister and becoming threatening to people. Questioning of 77 Brigade role and ethics was described as a big no-no. If you got near that, you were in trouble. So we're going to ask who regulates the spying activity of 77 Brigade on the UK public, or are these people totally unaccountable and outside the law? And I think that's the key question. And I'll just put up that we've tweeted out, this is the claim by 77th Brigade, influence and outreach, but really what they're talking about is influenza. That's a dig at the grab for power from COVID-19, and they're certainly operating beyond authority. And Mike, to back up your Tony Blair information there's BBC News pushing Tony Blair, coronavirus, state surveillance, a price worth paying. So we're going to say to the person who was brave enough to provide the information, thank you very much. We'll also say to our viewers and listeners, we can only tell you what we were given. Please do all the checks you can to verify the accuracy of that information. But I've got to say some of it sounds a little bit too close to the way the military conducts themselves to not be from the mouth of somebody who has some knowledge.
Well, I would say that I recognise some of the comments on that, some of the statements in that from hints and comments from some of the public speeches given by senior military personnel in the last year or so. Yeah. So there may well be quite a bit in that. Now, David, Integrity Initiative, of course, related to 77 Brigade in the sense that they also were targeting in the early days of 77, like in the early days of 77 Brigade, Russia in particular, but they don't seem to be doing very much at the moment.
They do not. It was very striking because in the early days when they were justifying their existence and justifying their bill to the government, and the government funded them to the tune of £2 million last year, they were pointed at their Twitter account and the influence the Twitter account was having. And what we see here is a notification I got that the Integrity Initiative Twitter account has in fact gone to sleep. There's been no activity at all since the 11th of February. So they seem to have vanished. The main Institute for Statecraft website is still closed down with its holding page saying we've been hacked and we're not happy about it. And the internet seems to be completely clear of any recent references to an Integrity Initiative, to Chris Donnelly, to the Institute of Statecraft, to any of it. It seems to have vanished. It'd be very interesting to find out what the government financing for this is this year.
Well, it may be that there's a shift in tactics because, as Brian said, their 77 Brigade initially was supposed to be operating looking outwards from the UK at foreign countries and what they've been doing, what they were doing in terms of what they describe as disinformation and misinformation. As I'm highlighting in this article on the UK column, the British military information war waged on their own population, that seems to be now looking inwards. And lots and lots of questions to be asked. The points I'm making in this article are really the combination of 77 Brigade, the Cabinet Office, and the various mechanisms, Fusion Doctrine, and so on, and how this is fitting together to provide this information war, which is being waged on certainly a section of our own population, but everyone really that's asking questions about things at the moment.
Yeah, and a very good article. Do read it.
And share it, please.
And share it,
yes.
yeah.
Now, if you do like what we're doing and you'd like to support us, then you can do that by heading over to ukcolumn.org/community. There are options to do that there, and your support much appreciated. And again, once again, thank you very much to everybody who has joined us in the last few weeks. That has been fantastic. And I'd just like to let everybody know that if you'd like to watch the live stream of the upcoming AV11 conference, which is taking place on the 8th, 9th and 10th of May, the ability to join that is now up on the UK Column website. If you go to ukcolumn.org/community/events/alternative view 11, and you'll find it there.